was the audio, Eric? Good?
Good.
All right, you ready to go?
Whoops, hold on.
You just have to hit the red record button over there.
No, I know.
Good?
No,
Okay.
hold on.
Let me know if you need my help.
I do.
Okay.
Are we set to record in video?
Yeah, all you need to do is hit this.
I did. Why did it do that? Oh, we weren't,
There
okay.
you go.
All right.
I wonder if it crops it like that, though.
I think it did.
Can you just look at my hand one more time? I'm gonna shoot a little wider.
Yeah.
Is that okay with you?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
That one's already recording.
All right. Just keep an eye on this one, because it'll time out after like 10 minutes. I think that's what it was, isn't it, 10 minutes?
Okay.
All
Scratching
right.
off.
No, you're good.
All right, I think we're good.
All right, ready?
Yep, I think so.
All right, so let's go ahead and knock this out. So the first question that I have for you, and like I said, if you could answer in complete sentences, that'll be great. First question is easy. It's just, can you tell me your name and how you're associated with South Suburban College?
My name is Mark Frazer. I'm not really associated with South Suburban College. Starting back in December or January of last year, I started emailing with Sergio Gomez. So over a period of a couple months, he just eventually offered me the show in this space. So I'm not technically associated with South Suburban College.
That's okay. So would you say like you're a visiting artist? So
Yes.
could you say like my name is Mark Frazer and I'm a visiting artist here at South Suburban College?
Sure.
Would that be fair?
Yeah.
Okay.
My name is Mark Frazer. I am a visiting artist here at South Suburban Community College.
Cool. We'll do that one more time. So can you say your name and how you're associated with the college?
My name is Mark Frazer, and I'm a visiting artist at South Suburban Community College.
Perfect. All right. Eric, how's the shot looking? Good?
We're good.
Good. All right. What originally inspired you to become a photographer?
Well, I consider myself a multimedia artist. So in the summer of 2016, I had just finished about 20 years of colored pencil mandalas. So I needed a better camera to document the work. So I just got myself a better camera, a phone, and then after I documented my old work, I just started playing around with it from like June to July of 2016. Then in the course of that, I kind of just discovered a kind of a trick with the camera. So then I just kind of used that and turned that into a technique. So I don't really consider myself a photographer. I'm more of a multimedia artist.
What is a multimedia artist?
The way I understand what I do is intuition is my biggest tool. So right now I kind of feel like I could take any medium and start interacting with it. And then I just follow my intuition and things come together. Usually for me, the images come first, and then I find out what they're about later on. So that's really what this was about. It was very, it came out of play. So I just pursued it, and because I've learned that that's the strongest thing for me to do is you just get a little intuitive nudges and you just keep following them, and eventually it all comes together.
You mentioned a mandala?
Mandala?
Mandala? What is a mandala?
The mandala is a very ancient form. It's basically a circle. The word is, mandala is Sanskrit for sacred circle. So if you think of the Buddhists do sand mandalas. The Hopis do sand mandalas. Really the mandala is in many traditions, but the Buddhists are the most famous. They're famous for their sand mandalas. It's a rich, long tradition of these. They're very intricate and beautiful. They lay them out and then they let them sit for like 4 days. And then they let them blow to the wind. So that's what the mandala form is. It's really a sacred circle is the idea.
Cool. No, you're good. You're good.
Okay,
Do you want to
all
go
right.
ahead and dab?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you think I need to, then yes, I do.
Oh no, I just figured I would just every couple
That's fine.
questions we could go ahead and do that.
Okay.
What made you want to get involved with the mandala? What was it that kind of drew you to this form?
That was back in, I probably should not look up. That was back in like the early 90s. Back then I was just I had a studio art bachelor degree, and I was just playing around with different mediums, colored pencil, watercolors. I eventually just decided to stick with one medium, so I chose the colored pencil. And the mandala just came to me kind of randomly. A friend in college had doodled one in his book, and I just kind of thought of it one day, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna make a mandala. So I just started making them. That was back in like '93. First I made small ones, and then I wanted to make bigger ones. So I took some paper and first I taped it together and I glued it together like notebook paper. So that became my larger canvas. So I just started making these large circular forms. For me, each one was like an idea. And at some point I kind of started with the idea that I could make each one like the idea of the million faces of God type of ideas. So that's how I started. It was kind of on a whim.
I know you just mentioned the many faces of God. I know that I read that your faith is also tied to your work in a few ways. I think I saw some like Bible scriptures or biblical scriptures in some of your descriptions. Can you explain to me how your faith is tied into the work in this series?
Well, my faith was more of a beginning point for all of my work. Back like in the 80s and 90s. 80s is when I was in studio art, and all my credits were loaded in art, and I had to declare a major. So that's really how it started. And then for my whole life, I've been, I guess, spiritual. I never really had any negative responses to God growing up. I'm not very reactionary to church or God. But when I got into college, I didn't go to church anymore. I started, the gay experience is part of my experience, so that really took over my life probably for about 10 years, really. And the spiritual stuff was always just in the background. I read more like, I was reading a lot of New Agey type of books back then. That was the early 90s. A lot of Native American philosophy is kind of where I started. I jumped off so I started with the Catholic idea of God, and then jumped off more into the Native American philosophies about nature and reality. So then through the years, I just kept pursuing those ideas and trying to understand that better. Anyway, that's kind of an endpoint for me.
You're good.
Sorry.
Yeah, you want to go ahead and dab?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you're doing a good job.
Okay, cool.
So
cool.
yeah, you're doing fine. You're
Okay,
doing fine.
good.
Like I said, if I need you to repeat anything, I'll go ahead and ask you to.
Okay,
But you're
all right,
doing a
all
good
right,
job.
okay.
Yeah. Eric, how's everything looking? Good?
I'm moving this camera just a tad.
Oh yeah, one thing I noticed too is you're kind of moving around a little bit. Can you try and
Okay,
stay still? That'll be good because our lenses are super sensitive.
Okay,
so
got
if
it.
you like, it's crazy because it's like as soon as you like move out of that, it like gets out of focus.
No, I got it. My
So-
phone is like that kind of, so.
Yeah. So yeah. Other than that, great job.
Okay.
Okay. So can you tell me about the photographs in your series, Fruit Fly, The Summer of the Grasshopper?
Sure. Like I said, it started out of play. I was playing with my new technology, basically, and I was basically just developing, kind of learning how that technology worked. And at a certain point, I kind of just, I had an idea of, let's photograph this. So I did it, and then there was like a little secret there. So then I just kind of saw a potential for it to be like a whole series that I could make. And the one thing I did was I limited the series to my errands around town and then my commutes to kind of keep it like a storyline. And then I just kind of, I think I went crazy for the rest of that summer. I ended up with over 2,000 of these images. I also have, I went to Manistee, Michigan in the fall of 2016 for my parents' 50th anniversary. And I did a whole series in the town of Manistee and then along the coastline of Manistee. So that's what it was. Again, it started out of play, and then I kind of followed those little intuitive nudges because I had a sense that there was something here. So that's really what it was.
Cool. Can I just have you say that in a complete sentence? So my series, Fruit Fly, The Summer of the Grasshopper started, and then you could just give me like a sentence after that, or just kind of sum it all up. So my series, Fruit Fly, Summer of the Grasshopper started, or something like that.
My series, Fruit Fly, started out of play.
That works. And then we can, Eric, that'll be a good edit, right?
Yeah, I can throw it back.
Okay.
I don't want to mix in Fruit Fly with Summer of the Grasshopper quite yet in that
Oh,
sentence.
they're different?
Well, Summer of the Grasshopper, the technique itself is called grasshopping when I started doing it. And I called it that because I was on the Brown Line home and there was a giant green grasshopper on the inside of the Brown Line train on the window. So I got a picture of that and I really felt like it was going back to the idea that I originally read a lot of Native American philosophies and ideas, they use animal spirits. So for me, it was kind of speaking to me a little bit. So that's when I started calling the technique itself as grasshopping. At a certain point, I realized that the images on my phone were just data. They weren't really anything yet. It was just electronic data. So then I went and got a printer to print them out, because that made them an object, to kind of realize them as things. So anyway, that's the end of that sentence.
No,
Kind of
you're
lost the
fine.
thought there.
So fruit fly is one thing, Summer of the Grasshopper is another, but they're all incorporated into the series of work, right?
Correct. Summer of the Grasshopper was, again, trying to turn it into a story. So the Summer of the Grasshopper was 2016. That's when I developed the technique. Part of the storyline is that when I was doing the mandalas, color pencil mandalas, I called myself the Big Green Pea. I'd made a t-shirt back in like 91. I just painted this circle on a t-shirt and I colored it green and I called it Big Green Pea. So that became my brand, it became my name. But it was also a thought form. I keep telling people it was a thought form. In 2016, what happened was, what I understand now is, in a sense, the Big Green Pea was a seed. It was like a seed idea, and it kind of cracked. It cracked back in 2015. Then out of it came this process fractal, the technique of grasshopping. And then this technique of grasshopping that is the actual parable. The fruit fly itself are the actual images, the hard copies of the data.
Got it.
Okay,
That makes more sense to me. I was like, wait, is it one thing or is it two different things? I gotcha.
Okay.
I gotcha. So it's like a process.
It is a process, and I wanted to make this show like a story. So Summer of the Grasshopper is the summer of the. So part of the idea of the process of grasshopping is that because I went through the process, it changed me. That's the idea of transformation. So that's the idea Summer of the Grasshopper is about. It also reflects on 2018, then becomes the Summer of the Grasshopper too, because I get to have the show. So there's that idea also.
Got it. That makes sense. And then how did you, the locations of, you mentioned that, some of these were shot like as you were going for a walk, others were shot in Michigan. Is there a reason that you decided to shoot in these locations, or did it just kind of happen?
Here, compose your thoughts for a second. Let me start this again because we're about to time out.
Sure.
Okay.
Go ahead and restate the question.
Okay. Hey, Eric.
Yeah, I just realized it.
Thank
I thought
you.
I turned it on.
So my question was, the locations of the work, are they relevant? Or like kind of, how do you choose the locations for where you're going to shoot the series?
Well, it was all, again, just very intuitive. So I tend to leave my house at like 5:30 in the morning to get down, to take the bus and then the train down to the Loop area. So just every morning I would just do it on my walks, random areas, wherever I felt like I should do it, which was almost everywhere that summer. I was just constantly doing it. Eventually, over time, the idea of developing a technique means I was able to start looking at the ground differently, and I was able to see if something would work or not. I also learned, I often referred to fruit fly as like haiku, because there's a rhythm in it. So I learned part of the development technique was developing that rhythm. And that, very simply, is about how many steps are in each picture, kind of. But it's mostly random. The locations are random. Yes.
Okay. You mentioned haiku too. For those that don't know what it is, can you explain what a haiku actually is?
Haiku is an ancient Japanese form of poetry. It's the 7/5/7, 7 beats, 5 beats, 7 beats. So that's the rhythm, and what I learned is it's the rhythm of breath of a moment. So I kind of, back in the late 90s, I enjoyed writing haiku, non-traditional, so it was more the 17 syllables, not the 7/5/7. When I started doing fruit fly, I just kind of recognized that there was a rhythm over time, over space. And haikus are also about still lifes. They're things that are there. So each fruit fly is exactly what was there at that moment. Like there's nothing added. That's why I say it's not Photoshop. Everything there was there.
I'm glad that you brought up the Photoshop thing, because in a lot of the pictures, it seems like it's only part of your foot and your leg is just gone. So how do you do that without Photoshop? How do you get that look without Photoshop?
Well, what I'm still saying, I'm not quite yet ready to reveal my full technique yet, but it's just part of what I recognized when I first did it as a trick. I called it, it started as play. I kind of was calling it a trick for a while because it seemed like a really simple little trick. But then over time, the more I did it, the more I learned how to do it better, to make it actually, it had to do with the length sometimes, and I forgot what your question was.
It was just how do you take these? You said you didn't want to reveal your secret, but I was just wondering how you take these photos and get it to where it's just like your foot or even just a part of your pants, and it looks like the rest of your pants should be there, but it's not in the shot. So
that is more the random. So some of it is random and some of it is, well, a lot of these are actually random, and that's more of a random element. I think that for me, as I began to organize the pictures and go through them, because I spent about 6-7 months before contacting Sergio in my kitchen just organizing these on a bulletin board and finding patterns, and those things are just the random parts of the images.
Gotcha. Can you explain to me too why you decided to include so many pieces? I think this is like, these are really the most pieces I've ever seen like in a show since I've been here, and it's been like 8 years. So like why you decided to put so many pieces into the show and kind of how they're organized?
It's just something I realized as I was organizing them in my kitchen, that I think the smaller something is, if you can have, the more of them you can have, that gives an impact. So one of the things I said when I was talking about this show as an idea was, I'd like to fill the room up like a swarm. So again, going with the fruit fly metaphor, fruit fly are often swarm, so that was kind of what it was. And I also feel that, again, with kind of smaller images like this, they just work better the more they're repeated. And it was, on another hand, it was just taking full advantage of the space. I didn't plan it. I just came here and started. It took me 9 hours that day. I was here actually from 11 to 9. So I just started hanging them, and this is just how it came together. Again, randomly, kind of intuitively. But my first idea was to fill it up as much as I could, like a swarm.
Cool. Yeah, and that makes sense to me, and that's what I was thinking. So I got that, like just as a viewer. So
oh, good. Good.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's good to know.
And then what was it? I had another question coming, and now I can't remember what it was. Oh, can you tell me what you actually use to create the work in the show? So what you said that you used a phone, I think is what I read. Like what kind of phone you use, what kind of printer you use, that sort of thing.
I started with a G4, I think it was. I'm not really big on technology. I have a G7 now, I just had to get a new one. I started with a G4 phone, and then I went and got an XP830 Epson printer. I lucked out because the guy at Best Buy that day printed pictures out a lot, so he knew what the good printer was, so I got a good printer. And then I learned about, then I just did it through the Epson iPrint app. So I just print from my phone through the app to my printer to keep it, to me that's very simple and very basic, and so I like keeping it at that level.
Why do you decide to use a phone instead of an actual still camera?
I think because, like I said, it came out of play. It was really just, literally I got new technology. I have like 2 months of pictures that are like trees and buildings, and even at work I was doing weird things with the windows. So I was really literally just playing with new technology. So it really just came out, it was again just very random and circumstances.
Another one of the questions too that I have, and maybe it's nothing, but I noticed that like you've got like funky sock colors in some of them. Some of them are blue, some of them are green, some of them are red and pink. And is there a reason behind the sock color? Like, do you go, oh, I'm gonna shoot, in the parking lot today, which is black, and red will pop on black, so I'm gonna wear black socks? Like, is that how you decide? Can you tell me about how you?
No, again, that's part of the random part of this whole series. Just whatever I woke up for that day and whatever mood I was in, and I just happened at that time. Kohl's had a bunch of, for a while, for one summer, they just had colored socks, so I just got a bunch of them, the greens and the pinks. And they're really a hit, like at work and everything, and like I've worn them many places and people love my socks. So they're just kind of a random element. And same with that summer, I just happened to have like 3 or 4 pair of shoes that I would trade between. I did, now and then I would choose, like if I knew I was gonna, I can't think of an example right now, but there are some areas where I knew like a pink sock might work better if I found something. Especially in the fall, I did try to match the colors a little bit, but mostly that's random.
Gotcha.
There is something fun, like there are some images where They look exactly the same. And for a long time I thought, well, so one thing about the fruit fly, there's no two images are the same here. I didn't repeat anything, printed out. There are some that look like they're the same image, but the way you can tell they're different is because of the color of the sock. So anyway.
Cool. Do you have, and I know it's probably like choosing a favorite kid, you know, like if you had kids or something like that, but do you have like a favorite, like small series in this show? And if so, can you explain to me which one it is and why?
Well, I think that right behind me is the corner, and the corner are those lights. They're kind of like, so I got really lucky that summer because when I would walk by this building, these lights would be on. They turned out to be, I think, my favorite series, just because the effect is, I think, really neat, and they look kind of, like I can keep telling people, no, this is something here in the city. Like there's no Photoshop, this is something real here. And a lot of people don't know where that is. I was talking to a guy at work, and he should have known, like he could. I said he could know where it is, but he didn't. So that's probably, as far as effect and appearance-wise, that's probably my favorite of the series. There are multiple series in the series. That's one of my favorite. Close to that series, there are the yellow ones, and I really like those a lot too because they came out. There's a whole series that had this yellow hue to them, and a lot of that had to do with, so in the morning sometimes there's different lights. So the different lights, for instance, by my house, by Ravenswood Bridge, there were just these weird orange lights. There was this one weird orange light. I did a whole series of pictures like on a Friday, and then by that next Monday morning, someone had walked by that light and smashed it down, so it no longer exists. So that's part of what this is also, is just really random, you know, the ground, but also the lights of the city. Because a lot of what is in these pictures doesn't even exist anymore. That's another weird thing about from 2016 to 2018. A lot of these things don't exist. For instance, the lights in those pictures, they haven't been on for this whole summer, like, because I still do that same walk and they just haven't been on at all. So that building may be conserving energy or something, they're not turning them on anymore.
Interesting. And then one thing that I noticed too is just in a couple pictures, maybe it's just two, it's not, you don't have your shoes in them. Like they're the only two where you don't have your shoes. They're like your long shadow. Sorry, I didn't mean to turn you around. It's this one right here. Like you see where it's just like
oh,
a
yeah,
long
yeah.
shadow.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I don't know if you want to read critical, Eric. But,
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. There are a couple pieces that are like that. Is there a reason for like these 2 or 3 like random long shadow photos? So
more towards the end of the summer 2016, I was, I guess, experimenting with the technology still. I came up with a couple other different versions of grasshopping and fruit fly. So those are those, and they are more about shadow. Okay, give me a second. I need a second.
Yeah, do you think?
This gets into another part of there's a whole part of this series that I haven't even talked about yet. There's an endpoint of Summer of the Grasshopping is now 2016. The endpoint of all this is called Shadow of the Grasshopper. So for Summer of the Grasshopper as a story, I kind of wanted to end it to allude to the very ending of it all is Shadow of the Grasshopper. So that's why I included the shadow ones, because they just kind of hint at that. For instance, over here, there's a shadow of a real grasshopper over there. And then the storyline, because I went through the process of, since I was doing the grasshopping, that made me the grasshopper. So then in the other ones, it's my shadow. So just kind of a way to hint at that endpoint story without actually telling it. Because this is the beginning. This is the beginning of the grasshopper story. The final point is Shadow of the Grasshopper.
Can I have him take one small step that way?
Yep.
Too much, right? Not towards me, towards the window, I'm sorry. Too much. Right there.
Okay.
All right, sorry. So then do you want me to ask that question again, Eric?
Yeah, why don't I read critical just to be on the safe side?
Okay,
So give me 1 second here.
that's fine, take your time. Let me know when you're ready.
Just a second.
We're almost done. I only have like 2 questions left.
Well, I'm just getting used to it now.
You're like, I'm good now.
Yeah, let's go.
All right, let me check this one.
Okay. One moment. Good.
Yeah, let me restart this from recording again.
Okay. Yeah, the DSLRs, when we use those to record, their like max record time is like 15 minutes or something like that. So we have to keep starting and stopping on the DSLR. But I like the look of the DSLR, even compared to this. Like this thing is like $7,000. The DSLR is under $1,000. But I like the look of the DSLR better.
Can you take one micro step this way? Too much. There we go. That's good.
Thanks.
Part of my comment to that is the only reason I know what a DLSR is because if I, hook up my camera to my desktop at work, one of the options, one of the folders is DSLR, and I know I have to go in there to get the camera images. So when you asked that question, you sent me the questions, and it was funny to me because the only reason I knew what that was because of that. Just to say, I'm really not a photographer. I'm really just kind of, well, I think that I could interact with any medium at this point, and if it's there, then I'll find what it is that I'm supposed to make.
Cool. Now, going back to the shadow of the grasshopper, the following summer then, did you decide to do a shadow series out of curiosity? Or is that just the end of that summer, of the summer of 2016?
It was more in the end of that summer that I kind of just started doing it. I just started doing these shadow images. So that goes back more to the randomness of the whole series. 2017 was more about, I had one more mandala to finish. Part of the storyline is that I had been stuck in this mandala series for about 10 years. So in 2014 and 2015 is when I got unstuck. I finished like 2 mandalas in a matter of, I don't know, like 4 or 5 months. But I had been stuck in them for about 10 years. So that was the crack in the big green pea, and then came the process of grasshopping, and then came the series of fruit fly. Oh, I forgot what I was saying there for a second.
You're right. You can take your time, or if it comes back.
Oh, so the summer of 2017, I basically finished the 6th mandala. The last series I did was called DNA Reflectors. So I finished the 6th DNA reflector in the summer 2017. So it wasn't about fruit fly or grasshopping at all, actually. And then the end of 2017 is when I started communicating with Sergio. I went and saw their space at the Zobe Art Center. So that's when I kind of got back to the fruit fly grasshopping after I finished. That was the last mandala, and then I was able to roll them all up, and they're all put away, completed.
How come you decided to show the fruit fly series instead of like your mandala series or any other series of work that you've created?
Well, there was just a point where there was just a certain energy level was behind fruit fly, and I kind of just knew that I had to go with that. I'd like to say that back in '93, I made a decision to stick with colored pencil and then see what the colored pencils would show me, because I was playing around with different mediums. So I think in the spring of 2017 is when, no, scratch that. In the spring of 2018 is when, oh, hold on, sorry. I'm thinking this too much now, hang on a second. I'm forgetting what I'm trying to say. So the summer of 2017 was finishing the DNA reflectors. The fall and the winter of 2017 was when I started working on getting back to fruit fly and grasshopping. So the spring of 2018 is when I had to make a decision and say, put away the mandalas, focus on fruit fly right now. And then things just kind of happened, opened up, doors opened, and through Sergio I got this show to use the space. There.
Cool. Cool. How are the shots, Eric? Still good?
Yeah, he
Okay.
stepped back where he needed to be.
Okay, good. And then, some of the pictures appeared to be like stitched or glued together. Maybe they're not. Maybe that's just kind of what it looks like. Is that part of your process?
It is part of the process. So I just have my printer. I'm not going through any digital printers yet. These are more of like a longer size images. So in the summer of 2016 is when I got the printer. Back then I was printing different images because I wasn't quite ready to figure out how to put the whole images together. So I have these kind of half image ideas. And then in 2017 is more when I said, okay, I'm just going to do it. So I just printed out the full images, and it's basically cut and pasting. This is a literal cut and pasting rather than computer cut and pasting. And eventually I was okay with it because when I go back to my mandalas, I take notebook paper and then I tape it together and I glue it together So with the beginning of Fruit Fly, I was doing the same thing. I was taking my images and I basically had to tape together the canvas and then glue it. So I like the repetition in my process. So that part is just kind of a way to, I can almost call that's my brand, is cut and pasting stuff together.
Cool. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, not necessarily.
Okay.
I mean, that was a pretty good, I think, range of questions.
Okay, thanks. Eric, anything you'd like to ask?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, thank you so much.
Oh, wow. Okay, great.
Boom, that's a wrap.
That was easier than I thought.